Chapter 22. The Bond. The door opened without ceremony. Varric entered the austere chamber, lit by a single brazier. Riven was already on his feet, his cuirass half-fastened, as if he had been expecting the summons long before it came. His face, impassive, carried the rigid calm of a man who had learned to lock his thoughts behind walls of steel. "Change of orders," Varric said quietly. Riven inclined his head. "My lord? You will depart for the Tower of Lumara at dawn. You will take a companion with you." Varric's gaze shifted toward the back of the room, to the small barred niche. "You will take the sorceress." A faint crease appeared on Riven's brow, barely more than a shadow. "The Oracle?" Varric twisted his lips in a gesture so slight it almost did not exist. "The woman. Call her whatever you like." Riven did not press the matter. Varric went on. "Galathor believes the bearer will come to the tower, either for the relic people whisper about, or for her." He gestured subtly toward the shadows behind the bars. "You will wait for him there. You will bring him back, alive if possible." Riven's eyes did not leave his. "And if he refuses, then you persuade him or you drag him." The silence stretched a moment longer. Riven exhaled once, slowly. "It will be done." Varric turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. "She remains chained until you've passed beyond the city walls. After that, the decision is yours." He added nothing more. The door closed with a dull thud. Riven finished fastening his armor, each buckle tightened with near-ritual precision. When he was done, he walked toward the niche. The woman sat on the floor, her wrists caught in iron manacles. Black hair spilled over her shoulders like a mantle of liquid obsidian. She lifted her face as she sensed his presence. Her eyes, pale, impossibly clear, met his without a trace of fear. "We leave at dawn," Riven said, his voice flat, stripped equally of harshness and kindness. "You will ride with me." She held his gaze for a long moment, then gave a slight nod. Riven turned away without another word. Behind him, the chains chimed softly, like distant bells announcing a journey no one yet understood. They had been walking for 3 days since the dawn clearing. 3 days of moving without a clear course, swallowed by a forest that seemed to grow inward, as if each tree added a new ring while they were not looking. The forest did not open, it devoured. The air was thick, almost viscous, heavy with the scent of ancient damp earth, mixed with a faint metallic tang that scraped the throat. The light filtering through the canopy was neither dawn nor noon nor dusk. It was an eternal in-between, a muted gold that never changed. Doran, leading the way with his axe over his shoulder, halted beneath a colossal oak whose bark was wrinkled like human skin. He spat on the ground and growled, "According to a merchant's map I saw years ago, the direct route to the crossing of Valor should begin here. From there, roads run in every direction, north to Elandor, south toward what's left of Rivershade, west straight to Kalandor, Valdara's capital." He paused, thinking. "And east, the gates of Cara Dum. From there, the climb to Thar-Zul begins." Kel turned in place. There was no road, no trace of one. Only roots like interlaced fingers and mounds of moss that seemed to breathe with the wind. "Well, I don't see a damn thing," he said. Sierra knelt beside a fallen trunk and brushed her fingers through the soil. When she lifted them, they were dusted with a fine powder that shimmered for a heartbeat before dissipating like a breath. "This forest," she murmured, "doesn't follow anyone's rules. The ancients called it the Illusory Forest. They said the trees move when no one is watching, that they shift to confuse those who do not accept." Her gaze darkened. "And that it only lets pass those who can feel the energy of primordial fire. The rest, it makes wander in circles until they forget there was ever an outside." Doran gave a bitter laugh. "Wonderful. And what happens if some of us don't have that fire?" No one answered. For hours they searched for signs, axe marks on trunks, which vanished when they looked away, stacked stones, which later reappeared in identical piles 100 paces ahead, moss growing in one direction, only to grow in the opposite the next time. The forest repeated itself. The forest mocked them. There were moments when they swore they had passed the same boulder 3 times, others when a stream crossed their path, only to appear again 20 minutes later from an impossible angle. On the 4th day, the mist grew so thick they could barely see the companion beside them. The silence deepened, so absolute that their footsteps sounded like hammer blows against the earth. That was when Alden stopped. Luthara, walking ahead, froze as well. The massive she-wolf scented the air, turned her head and looked at him. Amber eyes, deep, intense, as if a living ember burned behind them. Something shifted inside Alden. It was not an order, nor a voice, not even intuition. It was certainty, a straight line drawn across his chest. "She knows," he said without hesitation. "Luthara knows the way." Complete silence fell over the group. Kale broke it first. "The wolf? Really?" Doran snorted. "I'm not saying she's not clever, lad, but following an animal through an enchanted forest that eats travelers, that's not what I'd call a brilliant plan." Sira straightened. "Animals sense the energy of primordial fire better than any human," she said firmly. "And that wolf is more bound to Alden than any of us. If anyone can guide us, it's her." Lyanna said nothing, but there was a glint in her eyes. Not doubt, but recognition. They followed Luthara. They walked for an entire day, then another and another. Hours stretched like roots. The landscape was the same, and yet different at every turn, as if the forest were alive, rearranging the order of its bones just to watch them lose their way. Sometimes they climbed gentle hills that, once crested, descended into places they recognized. Other times they crossed nearly identical clearings, separated by branches that seemed to form meaningless symbols. The light did not change. The air did not change. Not even the temperature shifted. It was a place without time. Fatigue began to seep into their bones. Doran muttered ever louder under his breath. Kel walked with tense shoulders, as if expecting an attack from behind every trunk. Sira moved like a silent shadow, watching, measuring. Lyanna seemed to be waiting for something only she could sense. At the 3rd sunset, if such a thing existed, Doran spoke aloud. "This makes no sense. We've been walking in circles for 3 days. The wolf is leading us nowhere." Cal rested a hand against the trunk of a massive tree whose bark seemed carved with faces not quite human. "I'm with the dwarf," he said, exhausted. "Keep this up and we'll be eating bark." Sira snorted. "Better follow the wolf than a disoriented dwarf." "Hey," Doran pointed at his beard. "This beard has crossed ancient mines, mountains, and collapsed tunnels. Don't lecture me about being lost." "We're lost," Kale said. "Period." At that moment, Lyanna stepped closer to Alden, who walked just behind Luthara. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. Alden never took his eyes off the wolf. "Completely," he replied without hesitation. "How do you know?" Alden drew a deep breath. "I don't know how to explain it. It's like I feel what she feels, like her instincts are mine. Since that night in the cave, when I first saw her, it's been that way from the beginning. It's not something I can put into words, it just is." Lyanna stood still. Something in her gaze shifted, not doubt but deep understanding. Then she looked up. The primordial kite descended silently from above and settled on a thick branch directly in front of her. Its eyes were 2 frozen embers, so vivid they seemed to pierce through her. Lyanna met the bird's gaze. Her green eyes flared, a faint glow, as if a spark ignited behind them. Alden turned toward her at the very instant Lyanna ceased to be there. She was above. The sensation was so sharp it nearly stole her breath. Wind brushed her face, or rather the kite's, and she felt it. Then she flew. The world beneath her wings was a living tapestry, a sea of leaves stretching to the horizon. From that height, the forest was different. There was a path. Not a physical trail, not a visible line. It was a thread of light, silvery, a vibration running between the treetops, a direction, an exit. At the far end, distant, lay a golden glow where the trees opened into a plain bathed in true sunlight. Lyanna smiled, a small gesture, sincere, almost childlike. I see it, she whispered as if speaking in her sleep. It's incredible. The others stopped. What is it? Doran asked, alarmed. What in the abyss do you see? Lyanna blinked. Part of the sky still lived inside her. Everything, she replied, her voice still far away. The kite lends me his eyes. We're on the right path, and we're very close. The forest's edge lies to the east, always east. Kale opened his mouth, grasping for a rational explanation that did not exist. Doran scratched the back of his neck. Sierra and Alden, however, did not hesitate. I knew it, Sierra exclaimed. We felt it, Alden added. The kite descended in a smooth, almost ceremonial motion and perched on Lyanna's forearm. She stroked its head with a tenderness none of them had ever seen her show. Alden stepped closer. Have you named him yet? Lyanna shook her head gently. I haven't found one that does him justice. Alden looked at the bird. It tilted its head and studied him with calm intelligence, as if understanding the question before it was asked. Ether, Alden said with absolute certainty, because he flies where the air is purest, because he sees what we cannot. The kite let out a short cry, almost approving. Lyanna smiled fully with her whole soul. Ether, she repeated, savoring the word. Yes, it's perfect. A few steps away, Luthara released a deep, satisfied growl, almost proud. And for the first time since they had entered the Illusory Forest, something changed. No thunder, no tremor, no flash of magic, just a breath, a gentle movement, as if the leaves inhaled together and parted. Just a little, but enough. A narrow passage opened between two twisted oaks. It was real. It was a path. It was the first road they had seen in 4 days. They moved forward, and the Illusory Forest for the first time let them pass. The sun was sinking toward the west when the military caravan halted to make camp. A few dozen men, 3 supply wagons, spare horses, and her. Selenya rode at the center of the column, her hands bound by a short metal chain that chimed with each step of the horse. Riven rode beside her, upright and silent, his gaze fixed on the horizon as if nothing in the world were allowed to distract him. They had traveled that way all day, without a single word. When the soldiers began pitching tents, unloading barrels, and lighting the main fire, the air filled with the smell of salted meat and thick stew. That was when Selenya spoke for the first time. I sense more in you than the essence of a simple soldier. Riven did not turn his head, but the hand holding the reins tightened slightly. Do you? He replied, his tone so flat it might have been stone speaking. And what do you sense, Oracle? Old pain, she said quietly, and a faith that burns too fiercely to be blind. He let out a brief, humorless laugh. Galathor will bring true peace to Myranthel. He will end the fear men have carried throughout their history. Fear of elves, of dwarves, of anyone born different, and of the fire that sleeps in their own veins. His methods may not be gentle, but the end justifies the means when the goal is that no one ever lives in fear again. Selenya watched him with an almost inhuman stillness. The wind stirred the strands of her black hair across her shoulders like the shadow of an eclipse. Sometimes we tell ourselves very beautiful stories so we don't have to face real history, she said serenely. Because the truth hurts, and confronting it can break us apart. But everyone, sooner or later, opens their eyes. Riven finally looked at her. Steel lived in his gaze, steel tempered too many times. Keep your visions to yourself, woman. I chose my path long ago. There was no reproach in her, no challenge, only a strange compassion. Riven nudged his horse forward and moved a few paces ahead, placing himself before her. It was a practical gesture, nothing more, but it drew a clear boundary. The chain binding Selenya's wrists chimed again, rhythmic, a small echo among the trees. She lowered her gaze for a moment, as if listening to something deep within herself. Then she raised it, and her blue eyes, always clear, always cold as well water, had become almost translucent. Not luminous, not magical, but ancient, as if a fragment of the sky had fallen into them and was beginning to wake. A glimmer passed through her pupils, a glimmer not born of the world of men, No chain could contain that. No soldier could understand it. Night fell over the caravan in heavy silence. Fires rose, men sat to eat, and the forest whispered in the gloom. Far away in the heart of the illusory forest, a wolf howled, and a hawk answered with a piercing cry, as if two different paths of fate were finally beginning to move toward one another.